Hi there guys, welcome to this video. In this video we're going to make an image gallery. So this is going to be a nice mix of HTML, CSS and JavaScript in order to make an image gallery which will look hopefully similar to this here. So we've got a gallery here with 5 images in it, and we can click off the image if we want to later on. So for obviously my students, that this contains lots of different elements that will help you meet level 3 criteria, maybe even a little bit higher than that, um, because it's obviously combining all of these different aspects of web languages such as HTML to help structure it, use CSS to make it line up, for example, in a row across here, and the way that we're padding in between. So this is where you can start to see things like the box model coming into fruition, and the JavaScript in terms of behaviors. For example, when you click on one of these images, it starts to display underneath it, and you have the option to click it off, and so on. These images here are ones that I have taken. So I was very fortunate to go on safari in Kenya a little while back, but obviously you will need to get your own images for this. Now, um, I've set this up here, so you can see I've renamed all these images: image one, image two, image three, image four. You don't need to do that, but you do need to bear in mind that when we're writing this out, when you are referring to these images, you refer to them as you have named them. Okay, so if you call your image here vulture, for example, because that's what these are, you would have to, in the code later on, call your image whatever you've called it, rather than image one in this instance. Now, guys, I'll level with you in terms of this is likely to be quite a long video. Okay, um, and we're likely to make the odd typographical error along the way, but do please bear with me. I may choose to split it in two as if it gets too long later on, but the goal first and foremost is to record this in one go. Now there is going to be quite a lot of code here, so um, and obviously with the combination of HTML, CSS and JavaScript, there is more things that will potentially go wrong. But ultimately that is the life of a web developer, and we do just have to bear with it really. Hopefully, if we, or if you towards the end of it get a result a little bit like this, then it's happy times. Now, one thing to bear in mind here, guys, is my images are this size because that's how big the image is. Okay, I haven't actually done anything in HTML to change the size of these images, or in the CSS to change the size of these images. Obviously, if you do want to resize these images, I would recommend you went into something like a Photoshop to do that. Also, all of these images are the same size because I took them on my digital camera, so therefore um, they are all a uniform size. So you may find that if you are acquiring images from different sources, that they are different sizes, and therefore you may get slightly different effects when you actually scroll through them like this. They're not going to be identical. So just do bear that in mind. It may be something that you wish to do before you start making this image gallery, to go into something like a Photoshop and make all your images a uniform size so that they will look similar when you are going through the gallery like this, that you don't find that maybe one comes out here on the page on either side rather than filling the whole page up. Okay, because that may look um, not quite as nice. And obviously when you come to make your site, you may, I mean, this is literally just the gallery. When you come to make your site, I would imagine if you include a gallery like this, um, you would include it as as part of your your website. I would expect to see things like your navigation bar to be included, and so on. Okay, so you may find that if some of the IDs and classes that I use, if you have already used names like that, you may want to change some of the names and classes of the IDs and classes that I'm using. But obviously, then you will need to modify your own code later on. So where, for example, I use an ID of rows, if you already have an ID of rows, you may want to name this one something different. But then you'll need to make sure where I later refer to rows, you refer to whatever you've called it as. So if you call it fish, you have to, when I later refer to it, you will need to use the word fish, okay, rather than rows, if that makes sense. Um, so like I said, I've made a start in terms of I've got my images all ready to go, okay. Because they're annoying me a little bit, I'm going to just bring this all the way to the edge of the screen. It's obviously V2 because I've had a little bit of a dry run of it, and like I said, I do anticipate it'll be quite a long video, or maybe even videos. Probably being as I've already rambled for 6 minutes, it'll be at least split into two, but we'll see how we go. So the first thing we're going to want to do is to make a HTML page, and this is really dead simple in Dreamweaver. And what I like to do always when I start a new HTML page is to save it right at the beginning. And I'm going to save mine as image gallery. It really doesn't matter what you save as. The HTML file. It really doesn't matter what you save it as. You're not going to be calling it anywhere. The only obviously thing you might have is if your page is already made, you may be modifying an existing page, and that's fine if you want to do that. So I'm going to make a file. I've just called it image gallery. It's a bit of a mouthful. Probably shouldn't have called it that, but it doesn't really matter later on. The thing is, if you don't save it, you can't preview it. So ultimately, we need to be doing that. And one of the nice things with Dreamweaver is we have all of these preset things in there. So code. So if you are using something like a Sublime Text or a Notepad++, notice I'm not using the split or the live view. So actually, what you're going to see is going to be quite similar to what I'm seeing right now. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my fonts just a little bit larger to help you all read this, especially if you're looking at it something like a mobile device. I'm just going to give it a title. Okay. So the title is ultimately when you look at it on here, it has the name of the file on there. So therefore, if I have 10 tabs open, you can see what it is without having to go through all of them. So I'm just going to change this meta tag. So I'm going to give it a name of viewport. So this is going to bring in some settings from to help the browser know what content is going to be within the web page. So we've got content. I'm not going to spend too long describing all of these because ultimately we will be here forever if I try, because I've got quite a lot of I've got quite a lot of code to actually go through. So what we're saying here is the content needs to be the width of the device. So this is in case you're viewing it on a mobile device, for example. I'm going to link the style sheet. Now I haven't made the style sheet, so don't worry if this comes up with an error straight away because we've not made this style sheet yet. We will do that imminently. Okay. Well, sorry, when I say we'll do it imminently, we'll do it once we've put a fair bit of code in here first of all. So We've linked the style sheet. I've indented that. I'm actually going to get rid of the indent now. I don't need the indent at this point. So the whole point of indenting is good practice to see where tags open and close. It helps you to see, for example, where div tags open and close. If you indent them every time you have a new set of tags, it just makes it visually much more easier to see something. It's very good practice to get into. So we're going to put some content in here now. So we're going to create a div and style text align center. I mean, ultimately, you guys, when you're doing this, can have a play about with this stuff. You know, I've just basically this is going to be the title and a subheading. You don't have to align this to the center. That's going to be up to you. It also depends. You know, if you're using a page that's already been made and you're adding this to it, then you may find that it doesn't quite work as well as what you hoped for. So therefore, um, you may decide to align it a different way or not align it at all, in which case it'll be displayed on the left. H1 image gallery exclamation mark. Click on the image to see it larger. And again, you don't have to use exactly the same text here. You know, this is just me putting some filler in there so that it will tell the end user what to do. So if I run it, then I have this here. Okay, so I have it in the center and I have a little bit of text to tell the end user what they need to do, which is generally good practice. You don't want the end user guessing as to what they need to do. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is load the 4 images. Okay, so we're going to load in the 4 images, and it's not going to display at this point, you know, the way that you think. They're basically going to display one under the other. But we will use CSS and we'll use JavaScript to help display it in a way that we want to. So we're going to create a div tag. I'm going to call this, oops, I've closed the div tag too early, div class equals row. And like I said, this is where if you already have a class called row in your website, you may want to call this something else. Okay, so you may want to call it, I don't know, image row or something like that, just so it's different to anything else. But I don't have that, so therefore I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to indent this, and I'm going to create a class called column. Okay. Notice how the indenting here makes it easier to see where these divs open and close. Image, whoops, img. So we're going to bring in the images right now. Image src, and like I said, I've called mine image 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to first of all make a 4 image gallery, because I want to show you how you would modify it to make it into more or less images later on. So I'm going to make a 4 image gallery to begin with. Image 1 dot jpeg. Okay. I think this is a vulture. But I'm not going to flick back and forth to make sure that my alt tag exactly matches the image. You guys can take more care over it than me, because ultimately, I said I don't. It's not massively important whether I get the exact alt tag. However, for you guys, it will be more important because it needs to be accurate. You know, ultimately, the alt tag, remember, is what will be read out by screen readers, or will help people if your image can't load for whatever reason. Style equals width. And I'm going to add something in here that you may not have seen previously, which is an on-click event. got that in the right place. I don't think I have. I think that needs to be there. Yeah, I'll get that right in the end. Um, if you bear with me. Sorry, I was right. I was just quickly double checking with code I'd made earlier. Okay, so we've put an image in there. We've given it an alt tag. We've given it a width, and we've made an on-click of it. Now, it's basically what that means. It's going to call a function, which is called my function. Now, obviously, we've not made that function yet, so it's not going to do anything until we make the function. We'll do that probably last. Um, so, right now, if I save it and run it, it should just display the one picture, okay, which is the vulture. They are very strange looking birds, aren't they? Because they're very striking, but at the same time extremely ugly. Um, I'm not sure I'd like to get bitten by one. Now, I'm going to put 4 images in here, so I'm going to cheese it a little bit. Copy and paste as a friend, and will save you a lot of time. So I've copied that. I've done Control C, and now I'm just going to do Control V 4 times, and I'm going to do image 2, which is what that is quite a nice thing about Dreamweaver. I must admit that it pops up with that little preview, so um, I can know what it is. I can't for the life of me remember what this animal is. Um, um, let's call it a deer. And it's not a deer, but I can't remember what it is for now. And this last one is probably the lion cub. There we go. Lion cub. So I'm going to save that, and then when I preview it, there should be one after the other like this. There we go. Beautiful. Now I'm going to actually pause this video right now, and I will, because I've been going 17 minutes already, and I will load this up, and I will start creating the CSS in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you then.